See you. Thank you for coming.
See you. I'm excited. Very excited. Thanks for having me again. Appreciate it.
You have a great brain.
Okay.
And you scored really well on a lot of the testing.
Cool.
But you played football
Right.
for a long time.
Yeah.
And you were taught to lead with your head.
Right in the front.
And you're
over and over.
big.
Exactly.
And you're strong.
Right.
And that's bad.
Right.
Right? My hope is you're going to fall in love with your brain.
I'm excited.
So I read your history and I looked at your scans and I've looked at your testing and I have a pretty good idea why you're here. But I want to hear from you your goals. What do you want?
I think peace of mind, clarity, and to have awareness about what's actually happening in my mind and my brain, and see if there's things I can do to improve or things I can do to continue to stay on the track of it's in a good place. And just more clarity, awareness, and a game plan moving forward of how to maintain a healthy brain for the rest of my life.
Great. So obviously, many, many strengths, successful athlete, entrepreneur, teacher, author, podcaster, influencer, right? So we should just start with that. Whatever state your brain is in, it's really helped you
Right.
get to where you are.
Exactly.
You're the youngest of four. You grew up in a small town in Ohio. You were sexually molested by the brother of a babysitter,
Yeah.
starting at age 5.
Yeah, only one time.
Only one time. Older brother went to jail.
Yeah,
And you went to jail a lot.
to visit almost every weekend. Yeah,
For how long?
about 4.5 years.
What was it like?
I think it was really stressful the first 6 months to a year because it was a very traumatic event for the whole family. I mean, my parents were under a lot of stress, and that kind of trickled down to my other siblings. And it was just like, I think my brother had a lot of shame and guilt for being in prison, and it just affected all of us. So I remember it was also, I wasn't able to hang out with kids during that time because being in a small town, everyone knew about this. So the parents on the neighborhood that I lived on wouldn't let their kids hang out with me because, maybe I'm bad or maybe I'll do something to mess up their kids or whatever because of my brother. So that was challenging. But after a while, I got used to it. Going to the prison, it's a process. You go through security. It takes like an hour to get in. They check everything. So you go through all these metal detectors, pat downs, everything, just to go into kind of the visitor area. But then when I was in there, I realized there's a lot of good men in there that just made bad decisions, made bad mistakes. And I was becoming friends with other inmates and learning their stories. And just as curious, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, I would just walk around and just ask questions. I realized they weren't that bad of humans. They just made some bad mistakes. So it became a normal, after a while.
I love that. It's easy to call people bad.
It's easy, but
It's harder to go, why?
Exactly.
And who among us has not made mistakes that
Absolutely.
we wouldn't do again,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder how that fits into the school of greatness, that experience.
It gave me a perspective of life that most 8-year-olds don't have, I think.
Right.
I don't know if many people have ever been to a prison in general to visit, let alone go and spend time with inmates for multiple hours, for multiple years, weekly. So learning about the traumas of what happens in a prison when you're there, hearing the stories from my brother every week about what was happening really scared me. It really made me, one of the reasons why I never drank, never smoked, never did drugs, still today, never been drunk in my life. It's like, I just don't want to be in there. I was like, no matter what, I just want to make sure if I make mistakes, I want to be sober making mistakes so I have 100% responsibility for my actions. And I just don't want to lead myself down that path. And so it scared me in a sense, because I was just like, this is not a way to live.
So like the old documentary, Scared Straight.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a sign of intelligent life. Like, I'm one of the few people I know. I don't drink. I never did drugs.
Right.
I always thought it was dumb.
Right.
I'm like, why do you want to be out of control? And they scared me,
Exactly.
right? And
Yeah.
some anxiety is good, right? People with low levels of anxiety are more likely to go to jail.
Really?
Because they don't see the future with fear.
Huh.
And it's why I don't drive down the freeway at 125 miles an hour in the rain, right? Because I see this bad thing could happen. Now, obviously, if anxiety is too much, that's a bad thing, right? You had dyslexia.
Yeah, I think this was probably one of the biggest challenges for me, and probably still something that I'll reference, but I'm at a very peaceful place with it. It's like I accept it. You know, I'll read something and I'll have to reread it over and over, or if I'm typing something, I'm misspelling constantly. I think I even posted when I did our interview, I wrote brain as Brian. Like, just, I still spell things backwards, a little different. And so I struggled in school. I had a tutor all through school. I was in kind of the special needs classes on the side during recess and after school, just to kind of stay with my classmates in the same grade, because they wanted to hold me back a few times. And when I went to 8th grade, they tested me at a 2nd grade reading level. So I was just kind of always behind. And I was fortunate enough, I had some good teachers that just like had compassion and just struggled confidence-wise in school with thinking that I was enough, thinking that I was worthy, smart, intelligent, you know, and I felt like I was dumb pretty much my whole life. So I had to really learn how to overcome that insecurity in my 20s, because I never felt like I was smart enough. So when I was launching my business, it was like, man, I really need to learn how to learn, because I didn't learn how to learn in school. So that's when I really started.
And you didn't learn to love learning because...
No, because it was always stressful. It was always exhausting.
It was always stressful.
I was always in the bottom of my class. So it's like, what's the point of trying? No matter how hard I studied, I was still getting C's, D's in the bottom of my class.
You've done a lot of work on yourself, and I'm grateful for that.
Many different therapeutic experiences over the last 8 years for sure. Workshops, group kind of therapy experiences. I've been working with a therapist over the last 5 months intensely, pretty much weekly, some 5-hour sessions. Because I felt for most of my childhood, I didn't have peace. I didn't feel inner peace.
You didn't.
No. And so
Right?
I was always...
you're struggling in
Yeah.
school, there's family chaos.
Never felt peace. After I started that kind of therapeutic experience that I did 8 years ago and talked about sexual trauma for the first time in 25 years since it happened, it was like, wow, I never felt that type of peace from that release. Now, there's many other things that I still have yet to work on and was working on over the last 8 years, but that one was a big one for me that allowed me to have a sense of peace that I've never had before.
The image is on the right. Blue is average activity. Red and white are the most active parts of the brain. And they should be here
The front
in the cerebellum.
area, or?
No, it's in the back area. Yeah.
So this is the back of the brain. Got it.
So the back bottom part
Got it. Should be active.
should be, because it's got half the brain's neurons. I mean, it's like really important. It's like the CPU, or the central processing unit in the brain. And then when I look at your brain, it's a little bumpy. And since you don't drink and don't smoke, because that'll make it bumpier, I think it's the repetitive trauma
Interesting.
you have. And your temporal lobes, which are here, they're hurt.
Huh.
And it makes total sense. It's almost all of my football players.
Really?
All of them. Now, the question, and I'll show you a program I have, can I make it better? Because that's what I like. Your cerebellum's Okay. This is your worry center. It's the brain's gear shifter. It's got a long term. It's called the anterior, just means toward the front, cingulate gyrus. And sometimes I'll give somebody a little bit of serotonin. We make something called happy saffron, raise the serotonin. Naturally calm it down. Deep in your temporal lobe, there's an active area. So if you hadn't gotten control of your temper, I'd like, I want to calm that down. Because this, are you right-handed or left-handed?
Right-handed.
Right-handed. This can go with dark thoughts. And for like no reason out of the blue.
Sure.
And part of your emotional brain, this is your thalamus, it's working really hard. And in the first scan I took of you, everything was low in activity, and this was really high. And I'm like, do I trust that? Which is why I scanned you again. And I think that was artificially too high.
Okay.
And did you go through a breakup recently?
Yeah, a month ago.
Yeah.
So it's been a journey the last month. Yeah.
And so I'm like, I think something's going on.
Yeah, it's been
for him.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And so I'm gonna calm that down. That's working too hard. And so that's why balance is important.
Yeah.
And so I want you to continue to do coordination exercises, and you beat me in that basketball game. So
Yes, yes.
I need to do them too.
Yeah.
But we want to calm this down and improve this.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
if we put your brain in a healing environment, totally can get better, right? I mean, I wouldn't recommend more football.
No.
Love your brain. Well, now we have a baseline, and let's plan like 4 months from now, do it again, and see if we're making the progress we hope.
I'm in. Yeah. Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very helpful. Very informative. Exciting to see.